Nothing brims with a ghostly atmosphere quite like a ghost town. Anyone ever been to a ghost town? Any strange experiences? Let me know in the comments. I'm your host James, and these are the top 10 cursed towns that vanished overnight. And we're kicking things off with Centralia in Pennsylvania. This is a town that's more eerie than it is mysterious due to a long burning underground coal mine fire that started in 1962 and continues to smolder to this very day. Once a thriving coal mining community, Centralia is now a nearly deserted place with cracked, smoke-emitting streets that seem to belong to a post-apocalyptic kind of world. Seriously, just look at some of these images. That is freaky. There's graffiti everywhere. There's these large cracks in roads with smoke that just constantly is billowing out of it like it's just been hit with a blast from an alien ship or something. The fire, which ignited in the coal mines beneath the town, led to widespread evacuations over the years. Homes were abandoned and the population dwindled as toxic gases and unstable ground made the town pretty inhospitable. What's left is a place where steam rises from the ground and graffiti-covered highways lead to empty streets. Number 9, Bodie, California. If you've ever wanted to hop into a time machine and visit a gold rush era town, then this place is for you. Only you won't find any people there anymore, but the homes and buildings are still standing. Nestled up in the Sierra Nevada mountains, this is a real deal ghost town that's been frozen in time. Walking down its quiet streets with old wooden buildings on either side of you, you can almost feel the history oozing out of the place. But Bodie isn't just about history. It's also said to have this strange vibe going on, even for a ghost town. A lot of folks who visit swear they've felt some ghostly stuff happening here. Nowadays, it's a state park, and they're careful to keep things looking just like they did back when everyone packed up and left town. So as you wander around, you're basically walking through a time capsule. Pretty cool. Next up, we have Noria in Chile. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, this place was a buzzing salt pepper mining town filled with life and industry. But as time went on, the demand for salt pepper declined, and by the mid-20th century, Noria was left abandoned. Now, when you visit Noria, you'll find it frozen in time. The town's buildings have decayed though, but what makes this ghost town especially creepy is all the bones. More on that in a minute. Walking through the deserted streets, you can't escape the feeling of stepping back in time when Noria was a thriving hub of activity. The place is also very isolated. It's in the middle of the desert, so that definitely adds another layer of spookiness to the place. But as stated before, one of the most haunting aspects of this place is the old cemetery and all the damn human bones. Here you'll find open coffins, some still housing human remains. Over the years, the ghost town was looted, so bones are scattered everywhere, pretty unsettling. It's said that you should never wander to this town at night, as the tortured souls of the dead rise from their graves and wander about. In at number 7, we have Hashima Island. Hashima Island, often referred to as Battleship Island due to its distinctive shape, is located off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan. This island played a vital role during the early 20th century as a coal mining community. Housed a substantial population of miners and their families in high-rise concrete apartment buildings. As the coal industry declined though, Hashima Island saw a gradual depletion of its inhabitants, leading to its ultimate abandonment by the 1970s. And today, it's a time capsule offering a direct look into its past. The island's concrete structures still stand today, although they've been exposed to decades of coastal elements. There's abandoned apartments, schools, and shops that remain untouched. It's pretty eerie. Next on the list is Oradour-sur-Glane in France. Oradour-sur-Glane, a village in France, holds a very dark and tragic history from World War II. Back in 1944, during the chaos that was the Second World War, the quiet village became the site of a brutal massacre by German troops. It's a very heartbreaking story where German soldiers laid waste to the entire village, not even sparing women and children. They left the village in complete ruin, and these were mostly civilians. They would herd them into churches and set them on fire, gunning down anyone who attempted to escape through the windows. It was just a complete massacre. Only 6 members of the village actually managed to escape. The village was never rebuilt either. The remains still stand today though, just frozen in time, like left exactly as it was when these horrors unfolded. The streets, buildings, and even the vehicles remain as they were, showing the signs of violence that took place there. As you can probably imagine, the place is eerily quiet. There's no one living there, and the usual sounds of daily life are completely missing. Number 5, Mount Sinabung, Indonesia. Mount Sinabung in Indonesia. This is something that is still ongoing. It's a series of volcanic eruptions that have led to the evacuation of villages in the surrounding area of the volcano. Mount Sinabung, located in North Sumatra, has been active for centuries, but in recent years it's become particularly volatile, and the eruptions have posed a significant threat to the communities living in the vicinity of it. When Sinabung starts to rumble and spew ash and lava, local authorities kick into action. They closely monitor the volcano's activity and issue evacuation orders when necessary to ensure the safety of the residents, and these orders are not taken lightly, as volcanic eruptions can be unpredictable and of course deadly. The process of evacuating towns and villages near the volcano is pretty challenging. Families leave their homes behind, their possessions, and sometimes even their livelihoods. Temporary shelters are set up to provide a safe haven for those displaced by the eruptions, and these shelters offer basic necessities like food and water, medical assistance, but the evacuations are not only a physical upheaval, but also an emotional one. As you can imagine, families are forced to leave behind their ancestral lands and the life they've known for generations. And at number 4, Bhangarh in India. Tucked away in the Alwar district in Rajasthan, Bhangarh isn't your average town. It's famous, or perhaps infamous, for being one of the spookiest spots in the country. So the story goes like this. Supposedly, back in the 17th century, a sorcerer cast a curse on the village and things went downhill from there. The place was abandoned, and it's been a ghost town ever since. People who visit often say they feel this strange, unsettling vibe, especially after dark. Some even claim they've seen ghostly apparitions. Bhangarh isn't your typical tourist spot, but it draws in thrill seekers and folks curious about the supernatural. Folks like me, I would absolutely love to check this place out. The town's got these, of course, old ruins for its temples and houses just sitting there as if time stopped centuries ago. And speaking of time, they've got a rule: nobody's allowed in after sunset, because, you know, ghosts and demons and all that. Obviously hard to say if the place is genuinely haunted, but the legends surrounding the place and the deserted structures make it a magnet for those who, love a good scare and dose of history at the same time. At our number 3 spot, let me take you to Ruby, Arizona. It's a real gem in the desert. Wish I could say that pun was not intended, but it was. Back in the early 20th century, this place was buzzing with life, all thanks to the copper mining boom. It was a kind of town where everybody knew everybody, and things were looking pretty good. But as they say, what goes up must come down, and the copper boom fizzled out, and by the mid-1900s, Ruby was nothing more than a ghost town. The folks moved on, and what they left behind is a piece of history stuck in time. Those that wander around Ruby today feel like they're stepping into a time capsule. There are houses, a school, a general store, all just sitting there as if the residents were there one second and gone the very next. A slice of life from another era preserved in the desert. What makes Ruby even cooler is its remote location. You're out there in the rugged desert, and you can't help but feel a sense of isolation. As you can imagine, I've never been. That's probably why it's a magnet, though, for history buffs and folks who love exploring the past. And at our second place spot, we have Poveglia in Italy. This a small island off the coast of Italy, is known for being one of the most haunted places in the country. Poveglia's history is pretty dark. Back in the days of the bubonic plague, they used this entire island as a quarantine zone for the sick and dying, and thousands of people who were infected with the plague were shipped off here to keep the disease from spreading to the mainland. You can only imagine the horrors that went on. No surprise why this place is often referred to as the Island of Death. As if that's not creepy enough though, in 1922 there was a mental hospital built here. Rumor has it that some pretty messed up experiments were conducted on the patients too. Stories of mistreatment and suffering are enough to send a shiver down your spine, and today Poveglia is abandoned and it's said to be one of the most haunted places in Italy. Visitors have reported strange noises, ghostly apparitions, and an overall sense of dread when they set foot on the island. But considering its history, it's not very surprising. In fact, though, the Italian government has banned people from going there. You need special permission to even get close. Finally, though, we have Pripyat in the Ukraine. Probably the most famous abandoned town in history. Pripyat was once a bustling city, home to workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. It was a typical Soviet-style town with apartment buildings, schools, all the amenities you'd expect in a thriving community. Life was humming along until that fateful day on April 26th, 1986, when the Chernobyl disaster struck. There was a catastrophic explosion at the nuclear plant that released a massive amount of radioactive material into the atmosphere. Pripyat, being just a stone's throw away, was in the direct path of the destruction. The entire city was evacuated in a hurry, and its residents left behind their homes. Some of their belongings are still there. Even their pets were left behind, thinking at the time that they'd return soon, but they never did. And today, Pripyat is a complete ghost town. The abandoned buildings, the rusted playgrounds, the empty streets, that's all that remains. A time capsule of Soviet life in the 80s, but with a radioactive twist. Because yeah, the post-apocalyptic looking setting isn't creepy enough already. There are mutated animals that have been reported in the area too. Would definitely be a pretty surreal place to experience. Geiger counters click away as you walk through the eerily quiet streets. Nature is taken over with trees growing through apartment windows and wildlife returning to the area. Would you ever visit this place? I honestly think I would. If all the proper safety measures were in check, I think I'd have to. Anyway, with all that said though, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.